Hey guys, it's Bobby Legs and welcome to another episode of Bobby Legs Loves Watches. And today I have a double review, the Seiko SBDC053 and the Seiko SBDC055. I would like to pay special thanks to two of subscribers of the channel for lending these watches in. Noor, who lent in the SBDC053, and Art, who lent in the SBDC055. It was just a coincidence that they both sent in these watches around the same time, and I was lucky enough to have them both here to do a review. Now, Seiko had come out with the reissue or recreation of their 62MAS diver, and it came out with a hefty price tag. And so in Seiko style, they had decided to do different variations at different price points, and eventually it landed on these two. There's many more, but these two are the ones that we're going to be looking at now. A more affordable recreation or reissue, and I use that term lightly, of the 62 MAS. But before I continue with the review, please like and subscribe and click that bell icon to get notifications every time I upload new videos. I love making these videos, and I hope you like them too. So let's get on with the review. Alright, so let's dive into the specs, and I'm going to sit the SBDC055 down for the moment. They are practically identical specs wise. So we have a 42.6 millimeter case diameter, 49.5 millimeter lug to lug, 13.8 millimeter case thickness, 20 millimeter lug width. The crystal is sapphire and it's slightly domed, and you do have anti-reflective coating on the inner part of that crystal. Stainless steel case, and the case definitely takes its cues from that 62 MAS, although slightly bigger. You do have it's brushed on top of the case. Then you have this chamfered edge here that is polished, and right underneath that here it is polished as well. So you have a nice combination of brushed and polished. The case back is also a combination of brushed and polished. This outer ring is polished. The inner ring is polished with the engraving of the tidal wave, the tsunami. And then in between those two areas, you do have this brushed part here, and with the typical writing here, you have the Seiko prospects, and all that information that comes in there. So this is powered by the Seiko Caliber 6R15, which operates at 21,600 beats per hour or 3 hertz. Its hacking and hand winding has 23 joules. It's got a power reserve of 50 hours through the Spron 510 hairspring. And then you have an accuracy range of minus 25 to plus 25. So if this 6R15 sounds familiar, you've probably seen it in other watches in the lineup, like the SARB 033 and the 035. You'll see it on the Sumo and a few other lines there. So the 6R15 is kind of at the point where you're leaving the affordable base movements of the 7S26 and the 4R35, which are very good movements for what they are. And then you're starting to go to a little bit of a higher end movement, and the 6R15 I feel is the start of that. Now they give you a range of minus 15 plus 25. With all the 6R15 movements that I've had in my collection, they're pretty much spot on. So I also want to talk about the case here. The case is treated with Seiko's Diashield coating. And if it came on bracelet, that would have been also been treated. It provides an extra scratch-proof, as they say. So let's zoom into or onto the dial here, and this dial is this beautiful blue, like a sunburst blue. Just a really really beautiful dial. You do have applied luminous indices, and the hands have the Luma Bright. And it's not, you're not really seeing it here on camera, but if I looked off camera to the watch, that lume is slightly off-white. It kind of adds, and I'm not sure if this is something that Seiko had intended, but it kind of adds a little vintagey feel, because this case definitely makes it feel a little vintagey, right? I mean, it is supposed to be reminiscent of the 62MAS, and this is a beautiful, beautiful watch. You have 120 click bezel here. In this watch, the bezel is action is a little tight, but I'm sure in time that would loosen up. 200-meter water resistance, obviously a screw down crown here. And just to go over again, that first position of the 6R15 is to wind. The second position is to change the date. And then the third position hacks the seconds mark. And then you could set the time here. Screw that in as well. So one of the things that, you know, there are some things that are reminiscent to the 62MAS here, but obviously the hands are not. These hands, they kind of remind me a little bit of the hands that you see on the Monster, but they're not exactly it. The 62MAS and the reissue had stick hands, so the reissue was, you know, more true to the original. Like I said, I would call this a reissue. This would be loosely termed a reissue in my opinion, because they definitely take some keys from that 62MAS, but there's obviously some differences here. So let's set this down over here. And by the way, Noor had paired this with a Uncle Seiko rubber strap, waffle texture here, and it's just a great pairing. And speaking of, Art also paired it with a Uncle Seiko strap. These Uncle Seiko straps are really great straps here, and they fit these watches perfectly. Now you can get these watches on whatever stock Seiko rubber straps are, and I think they're pretty decent now. I mean, at least in the watches in the little higher end watches in the Seiko lineup. My first experience with a Seiko rubber strap was with the SKX, and that thing was that was a terrible strap. But some of the straps on the King Turtle, for example, I reviewed a few months ago, and that strap was awesome. So I'm sure the straps that come with these watches are not that bad, and then bracelets are decent as well. Anyway, so now here's the SBDC055, and so these two watches are almost identical. Of course, there's some slight changes here, some slight differences. Now this is the PADI version, the Professional Association of Divers, in partnership with Seiko. You have this blue coating, hard coating here for the bezel, the knurl, the bezel, the coin edge here, which is meant to match the dial of this watch. And you can see this dial is just beautiful. You have it almost like this wavy effect on the dial, and it starts off with this deep blue, or a lighter shade of a deep blue, because it is a deep blue, and it almost goes into this dark black the further down you go on the dial. Another 200-meter water resistance watch. The minute hand is bordered with red, and so you do also have those cues, the color cues on the 12, 3, 6, and 9 o'clock. So let me put this on wrist, and I have a 6 3/4 inch wrist, and these watches, this size, this 42 and change, and this 49.5 and change in lug to lug, and 42 and change in case diameter, is really the sweet spot for my wrist. I mean, these watches look great. This has become, I spent a couple days with both of these watches. This is I think this might be my favorite diver in a Seiko collection, you know, under, let's say, $1,000. I had really enjoyed the Sumo, and I thought that was the diver for me if I was going to go get another Seiko diver. I am, you know, still in a little bit of Seiko fatigue um, since I started my collection or collecting again back a couple years ago, and I was very Seiko heavy. Um, I feel like I'm bombarded by Seiko all the time, but this is almost of a little bit of a departure for those watches like the Samurai, the Sumo, the Tuna, the Turtle, watches with very distinct looks, which is great and it separates them from the crowd. But sometimes I just like a simple looking dive watch, and I think this quote unquote reissue of the 62MAS really succeeds in that for me. Um, just sits really, really well on wrist, and I really do enjoy wearing this watch. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think about this quote unquote reissue of the 62MAS, and what is your favorite Seiko diver? Let's say under $1,000. I'd really like to know. Please put a comment below. I love connecting with you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video.